Iran warning that no port in the Gulf or the Sea of Oman will be safe if U.S. President Donald Trump delivers on his threat to block traffic to and from Iranian ports in the Strait of Hormuz. This is scheduled to start in just under 2 hours. Tehran calling attention to the illegality of the move, labeling it piracy. Iran has in the last few weeks denied passage to vessels linked to the U.S. or Israel, while allowing transit under Tehran's regulations. Data showing 2 Iran-linked oil tankers exiting the Gulf through the strait ahead of this threatened blockade. Washington says forces will target ships that have made arrangements with Iran, including the payment of transit tolls. U.S. Central Command adding to the president's earlier message with the clarification that vessels transiting to and from non-Iranian ports will be allowed to clear the strait. Donald Trump making his threat after weekend peace talks in Islamabad yielded no deal.
I don't care if they come back or not. If they don't come back, I'm fine. Their military is gone. Their missiles are largely depleted. The manufacturing capability for missiles and drones is largely defeated. We've been very nice. We haven't ripped down too many bridges. We did one only because they broke their word. They broke their promise. And remember, their promise was that they were going to open the Hormuz Strait. They didn't do it. They lied.
Meanwhile, Israel is keeping up its attacks on Lebanon ahead of talks between Israeli and Lebanese ambassadors to the U.S. due tomorrow in Washington. Iran-backed Hezbollah operating in Lebanon has emerged as a point of contention in the U.S.-Iran ceasefire. An IDF official says it expects to control the southern town of Bint Jebel within days. Mitch McCann is covering this story for CNN from New York. Mitch, Mr. Trump says other countries will also get involved in this threatened blockade. Who will get involved?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I think there are many questions that the president will be asked in the coming hours because despite his lengthy posts on Truth Social, there isn't much clarity around many of these points on the matter of who's going to be joining the United States in this blockade. What we do know is who won't be joining the United States. British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has confirmed that the UK will not participate, and a spokesperson for the British government says that the UK is urgently working with France and other partners to put together a wide coalition to protect freedom of navigation. Australia, meanwhile, says it won't be involved and says that the US made this decision unilaterally. So that's America's AUKUS partners ruled out and presumably France as well. And this is likely to add to Donald Trump's frustration and his claims that America's partners are failing to help when Washington asks for their assistance. Of course, they would argue that they won't be dragged into unnecessary conflicts that they didn't start. Now, Donald Trump has not outlined what his goal is with this measure. Miad Maliki is a former Treasury Department official in the US, and he regularly quoted on the situation in Iran. And over the weekend, he's talked about the effect this could have on the Iranian economy. And he says that the blockade could cost Iran about $276 million a day in lost exports and disrupt almost $159 million in imports. So that's perhaps one reason Donald Trump's taking this course of action. But as I say, many unanswered questions. And one of the most prominent questions is who's going to assist here, because it appears there are no takers at this stage.
All right, another question we could also raise is where are we on the ceasefire, even the one that is in place now, the 2-week ceasefire? Donald Trump saying he does not care if Iran returns to negotiations. Where does that leave talks to extend this ceasefire?
Well, that's a very good question. As we just heard from Donald Trump, he was arriving back at Joint Base Andrews on the way to the White House, where he said, if they don't come back, I'm fine. Now, at the same time, Pakistani media is reporting that after the failed talks over the weekend, officials have intensified efforts to bring back both sides to the negotiating table. They say they're in talks with officials in Washington and Tehran. That's according to Pakistani media, as I say, urging them to resume dialogue at the earliest possible chance. I would say getting back to the negotiating table, is one thing, but it's difficult to see how both sides can reach an agreement after already having 21 hours together on issues where they are it seems, diametrically opposed. Things like Iran stopping all uranium enrichment, allowing the US to take it, and matters concerning the Strait of Hormuz. So to answer the question, it leaves negotiations essentially going nowhere. Washington likely hoping that this blockade in the coming hours can ramp up the pressure on Iran, and they might concede to some of these American demands eventually.
All right, we'll see what happens if that blockade should take place in just under 2 hours from now. Mitch McCann covering the story for CNA from New York.